Good afternoon,
Okay.
gentlemen.
Hello.
Okay. Well, he's off. He's off. So what I'll do is I will assign the case to Zach. And what's the address again where the fence is coming down? Okay.
Hey, John, do you have
So
ways
this is what we'll do, so nobody has to be involved. I'm gonna send
Oh.
Zach up there on Sunday when he gets back to
I
work.
sent to you?
If-
How many pages? Is that just a one pager or a couple pagers?
You say that
Yeah.
one more time?
Do you have a way of printing that out to share? Just real quick, that link that I sent you. What's that? That article's not real long, is it?
The Grand Junction one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta email it to myself and then I can. Give me 2 seconds and I'll have it ready when you're ready.
Okay.
Wow, spring has arrived.
Yes, it
I've
is.
got-
It's
I've got
time.
people.
It's time for the coffee harvest.
I got people sitting out on the porch today.
It was real nice. We had the doors open at City Hall for court, the council chambers. It was really quite nice. Lots of air circulation.
Yeah, I mean, I want to know whose idea was it for us to open up Minor Street? Gee, must have been my. Oh, Mike just went dark. Yeah.
Hey, wait a minute. I thought it was a collaborative decision.
Oh, that's what this committee is all about. I got you.
I don't
It
know
was-
how it would have worked out with losing, 60, 70 parking places and having the street closed down.
Oh, I went behind. I went down to City Hall to drop my water bill off and everything, and I pulled around and circled around. It's the first time I've been back there to see how much parking we've actually lost with what they're doing back there. It's pretty
And they're way
significant.
behind. I'm so frustrated with CDOT right now. I've been pounding on their door almost every day now. Not happy. I'm waiting on some documentation to see if we've got some legal stuff that we can throw at them and upset them a little bit. What's going on, Evan? Good to see you. Steve?
Ew.
I'm gonna go grab a glass of water. Be right back.
Randy just threw me under the bus. He says, whose idea was it to open the street back up?
Exactly.
If we could predict this weather, we could predict our business and our weather, man, we'd be rich because we
Oh
know
my
exactly
goodness.
when to have the doors open and closed. And
Well, one thing we can predict is when the flowers are delivered, it will be freezing and snowing.
Yeah, for sure.
Right, John?
No, I called the weather people and asked them to just give us a good day that day. Put it in the budget.
Well done.
good afternoon, Dr. Ryan, Brandy, Chip.
Good
See
afternoon.
ya. Kristen Wallace, who are you? You're new to our group. Is that a mango chip?
It's a bagel.
Oh, it was a bagel?
Yeah, it's breakfast. I've been on the phone all morning.
I'm gonna give it about 2 more minutes. Who's that? Is that really Sadie? We haven't seen you. How you been? We missed you in
Been
our
okay.
meetings. We've been
I
missing
know
you
it's
on
been
here.
crazy having to being and working so much.
Mom doing okay?
She's doing okay. Yeah.
Okay, good. Good. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started. I know how valuable everybody's time is right now. What I wanted to do is bring the group back together just to discuss.
You want to hear this, Patty?
Mary Jane, would you mute yourself, please?
Yep.
To talk about, as everybody should be aware of by now, tomorrow at 5 o'clock p.m., we will be going to the red level, which is going back to restaurants at 0 indoor seating anymore. And some of the other things will be continue as it is. It's unfortunate that we have gotten to this point now with this virus that, the suggestion and the direction from Dr. Ryan, I believe, has been superb. He's really done and gone far beyond the call to make sure that we are well informed day to day. Everything changes literally every day. Dr. Ryan has said he's been on 3 calls, and at each call it changes a little bit more. So to have Dr. Ryan on with us again today to talk to us about, and I'm going to let him talk first. So if he needs to go, and if we have any questions, he can go on and go back to what he needs to do, and we can continue our conversation. So about 5 minutes, Dr. Ryan, would you like to just kind of talk to this group about what's going on, expectations, and things we should consider and look at?
Sure. Thanks, Mike. Sorry, it took me a minute to figure out the mute button, 8 months into Zoom meetings. I wish I had really good news for you. Colorado will exceed 6,000 cases today alone. And that seems to be the trend. It's heading in the very wrong direction, despite the 15 plus counties and more are joining today, the red designation starting tomorrow. So I sort of count us as lucky in that we got 5 days notice of this, as opposed to some counties who got notice today that they're moving to it tomorrow. Currently, right now, Clear Creek, we've had 51 cases in the last 2 weeks alone. Our 2-week incident rate is now 524. If you recall, not too long ago, it was down near 40 per 100,000. So we've gone up significantly. Our test positivity rate continues to climb. It's now at 9%. It is roughly 12% in the state. If you look at some states around us, and I'm always doing this, Wyoming's test positivity rate is 94%. So that's what happens, and that's a prime example of what happens when you don't take things seriously and when you let things get out of control. Now you have a 90% test positivity rate with absolutely no plan in place and how to rein it in. South Dakota is in the similar boat. Both states are in the state of denial, in my opinion, in terms of the reality of what's happening. Unfortunately for Colorado, both those states, as an example, are relying almost completely on Colorado and states like ours to help them with their overflow of hospital capacity, because they don't have capacity in either one of those states. So Colorado is taking a significant number of patients from Wyoming and the Dakotas for that very reason. So the number of cases, as I just said, continues to grow exponentially, and the number of hospitalizations are following suit. Fatalities are inching up slowly, and that's typically what we see. There's a several-week delay in what we're seeing from cases to hospitalizations to fatalities. So we're trying our damnedest to keep the hospitalization rate from going too high, which would subsequently result in fatality. So I think the red designation for the probably 20 plus counties that's going to be by the time tomorrow rolls around will be a majority, but I don't think significant enough. The estimate was at least 80% of the counties need to be on the same page in terms of their designation and the dial to really have a major impact. I just got a call with my peers around the state. Our biggest concern is that whatever we're doing this week, the impact we might see next week might in fact be nullified by everyone's personal behavior on Thanksgiving. Just as an example, the school system took a survey of the teachers and what percentage of them intend to have dinner with individuals outside of their own home. And unfortunately, it was 60+% of teachers intend to have dinner with folks who do not live with them. From my perspective, that's incredibly discouraging because we think that Thanksgiving is going to, unlike previous holidays, it's going to literally add gasoline to the fire. Where previous holidays, Labor Day, Memorial Day, and 4th of July predominantly took place outside. Thanksgiving is an indoor holiday, as you all know, where we spend many hours intimately with our families and friends. And unfortunately, at this point, with the prevalence the way it is, it's not going to result in very good things. So we're hoping that people make the right decisions and that what we're doing now in the coming weeks will not be negatively impacted by people's behavior on Thanksgiving. But if history teaches us anything, optimism goes out the window. So what does that mean for all the businesses? I understand first and foremost, this is a significant impact economically on everyone. And we're hoping, and the state is hoping that we can at least keep the economy open and moving along, although not robustly. It is still open and still moving along, and hoping to avoid the now purple designation of a complete shutdown. The governor is very hesitant to go there, and this was sort of the interim step between where we were and where we could be in terms of shutting down. But again, hopefully it has the impact that we want in terms of our total numbers, and we don't have to take any more drastic steps. Any questions thus far? I'd just like to say for the record, I really hate being the person of bad news on every damn call I'm on. And it's nice every once in a while to be on a call with people like-minded and we commiserate for an hour. It's therapeutic, but sad in some sense with my peers to hear some of the challenges that they're facing in other counties. I do have to say hats off to our county and to the municipalities in our county and folks like Mayor Hillman, who are making some tough decisions from a political and from a logistical perspective that a lot of counties and a lot of municipalities are not making or not willing or wanting to make. And those counties are suffering massively. It's crazy. I don't really understand the disconnect between reality and what people understand as reality. It's bizarre. But hats off to folks like Mayor Hillman and the Board of County Commissioners for taking some steps early on and continuing to support and reinforce the public health message and the public health mandates, because I think, in my opinion, it's gone a very long way to helping us adjust and to helping us not lose businesses left and right any more than we would have if they hadn't taken those steps. So kudos to one and all. And businesses, I get it, man. You guys are struggling and this sucks. That's not a political or technical word. It's based in reality. I know this is very hard. And I'm trying to do everything that I can to make it as little bit easier on everyone as possible. I'm not a magician. I don't have a magic wand, unfortunately. I'm only a public health officer trying to do the best for the county in which I'm in those who are in the county. So I appreciate everyone's efforts. They do not go unnoticed. So thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, Dr. Ryan, this is Randy.
Hey, Randy.
Just as a point of clarification, the retail is open at 50% occupancy and restaurants are basically takeout only.
That's correct.
What about just kind of a question as it relates to in restaurants, people come in to pick up their food and, want to use the restroom. And is there anything in there? I didn't see anything about that.
No, there's not, Randy, and sort of the devil's always in the details, of course. And the guidelines are from CDPHE. We had a 24-hour period of input that the public health directors tried as much as we could to get as much detail or nuance in there. From my opinion, as the proprietor of your restaurant or coffee shop or whatever, and by the way, working from home, I really miss your coffee. But it's incumbent upon you, if you're going to have your facilities open for the bathroom, for instance, it's incumbent upon you to clean them and make sure that you're minimizing any potential exposure in there. I get it. I've been out and about, and there is no bathrooms for people to use. And it's, again, that technical term of it sucks. When you're wandering around trying to shop or do something and you really have to go to the bathroom. So I would leave that up to businesses in terms of, if you want to have your facilities, your bathroom facilities available for individuals who do show up, particularly around ski season. People are stuck in traffic for an hour and a half going that 5 miles from Loveland Ski Resort to where you guys are. And so sometimes they really have to go to the bathroom. So having those available, I think, is important. It's just incumbent upon you to make sure that you're cleaning them and doing what you can.
Yeah, our plan is to have the bathrooms available, but again, follow the guidelines of cleaning them and sanitizing them every hour.
Yeah.
So Dr. Ryan, we had in our chat a question why, as confused how retail was 25% capacity on level orange, but now we can go back to 50%.
I didn't make up these guidelines until you can call me governor. I'm merely the putting them in place. I think the thinking behind that, if I had to guess, and based on what I heard over our call Sunday night and Monday, was Christmas is coming, the holiday season is coming, and they want to make sure that the retail stores are open and have the ability to sort of capture all of that potential income between Thanksgiving and Christmas. So if I had to apply any sort of rationale to that, that's what it would be from the CDPHE's perspective.
Dr. Ryan, Mayor Hillman, I heard this question get asked of CDPHE staff yesterday. They basically are always updating these regulations based on data about where people are getting sick. And we continue to see that retail is a fairly safe environment. And so I would point to this as evidence that the regulatory approach is to be as open as possible.
Yeah.
And so another thing that I found, I know this is going to be all new. I know that you talk with your colleagues and other PhDs across the state. My daughter informed me and sent me a link. What do you know about this variance protection program that Mesa County's got going on? Because when my daughter said, "Oh, we're not going to have to close down, we get to continue our 50% capacity," I'm like, well, "This is statewide." And she goes, "Oh, I don't know. There's something here in Mesa County that overrides that with this 5-star rating or something." Do you know anything about that? What's going on and your position on that, your idea? And do you see that something like that with the right format could be something we could use here in Clifford County?
Mike, I don't know about this. I don't know any specifics about it. I do know from the chief of staff from CDPHE in a call earlier I was on with her, they're quite frustrated by a lot of counties' attempts, particularly more rural counties, that think that somehow they don't have to abide by things or they can do what they want. In frustration with that, because they're really trying to circumvent the protocol and the guidelines that have been put forward. So I don't know how viable it is, and I don't know how long it's going to last from CDPHE's perspective. I did hear CDPHE say without a doubt that some funding opportunities are coming. The governor's having a special session and there's gonna be money tied to it. And the carrot is, if you don't follow the guidelines, we will not include your county on the receiving end of those funds. So you can either choose to play by the rules, or you can choose to pay in the future with lack of funding from the state. Unfortunately, it's really the only stick or carrot, or however you want to look at it, the state currently has. There's some counties who their numbers are absolutely through the roof, 1,500 plus,
Yeah.
and they just don't care. They're gonna trudge on. The problem with those counties is they rely 100% on the hospital system that is in the Front Range from Denver up north. So they think it's not really our problem. When someone gets sick and needs to be hospitalized, we ship them to Denver and they're no longer our problem. That's not really based on reality. And it's shifting their problems onto everybody else unfairly without them themselves taking things seriously.
Okay. Another question we got in the chat was, so capacity for retail, to be clear, is based on being able to maintain 6-foot distancing.
It is, and you know what? Yeah, I mean, it's 50% capacity, and retail shops, as we all know, are range in size and capacity, how many people can be in there. So it could be as many 3 people in your store, or it could be as many as 12 people or 15 people. You know, it depends on the store. But to George's point earlier, the numbers that we're seeing from exposure out in the community are being driven by bars and restaurants. Mostly by bars, but then followed by restaurants. And that is, people are getting together with people who don't live in their household and going to a restaurant and sitting there for an hour without a mask on the entire time, socializing with their friends or family across the table. And so that too is similar to them going into their own private home. And that's why restaurants are sort of being lumped in with bars and the highest potential for exposure out in the community, as compared to retail stores where people have their masks on the entire time. They're not sitting there for an hour interacting with people across from them. They're in there maybe 5, 10, 15 minutes and then move on. That's just the basic logic and rationale behind what we're seeing in terms of their guidelines.
Another question was, if they're within their own group, they don't have to remain, and I'm sure they don't have to remain the 6-foot distancing amongst their own group.
No, if you go shopping with your family or those you live with, you're sorry, my shoulder is really hard to manipulate. You're your own pod, right? You're with your parents or your children, and you live with them. That's sort of your group, and you can move about out in public together.
Okay, any other questions for Dr. Ryan before we let him go? It's fair game. Any questions?
What's the numbers we have to hit to get to purple and being shut down? When is that looming over our heads? Is that just an arbitrary decision by regulators, or what are we looking at?
That's a great question, Marcel, and one that we asked earlier to CDPHE. The governor is really, and this is just based on what I've heard him say outside of the public announcements. He's very, very hesitant to close the state down the way we were in March for a whole host of reasons. And so we haven't gotten a number yet. We've asked that same question twice in the last week of what is that magic number? And it's really right now, the only thing I've heard is it's tied directly to the capacity of hospitals. Once we reach a certain threshold within the hospitals, and this is sort of how it works. You can't wait until the hospitals are overwhelmed. It's the game over then. So there's a certain threshold that once they reach that threshold, maybe 80% of capacity, that they now need to pull that trigger, because if you don't pull it at 80%, you're going to get to 100, 120% capacity literally within a week. We've seen that in spades here across the country, right? We had 10 million cases in 8 months. We reached that next million in 7 days. We're poised right now to reach another million in less than 5 days. So you see how that works exponentially. And that's really what the governor is looking at in terms of hospital capacity is, from my understanding, what he's using to say, okay, it's time to shut down. Because once we do that, we're now into crisis of care. And that means someone, unfortunate soul, has to determine who gets a hospital bed and who doesn't at that point. And that's really playing God at that point. Because if someone needs an ICU bed and doesn't get it, they are 100% likely to die.
Okay, got it. And then of course, like, given the metrics we've seen before, the numbers will drop quickly, even if we do get to purple where we can't operate, or even if we do this major slowdown here, sooner or later these are going to plateau and it's going to go back within 2 weeks. So and then when that does come back, in-room dining is still going to be the last thing that kind of goes back to full capacity. So imagining that outdoor capacity is probably something we need to start looking at. That's going to be the first thing to come back with any kind of, realistic, application. Am I right?
Yeah, and here's what I'm doing in my plan, just so everyone is on the same page and understanding. I obviously am looking at numbers all day long in terms of new cases that the nurses are reporting to me, and that sort of thing. When I see there's an indication that our numbers have A, plateaued, and B, begin to go down, that's when I'm going to call CDPHE and start that conversation of, hey, our numbers are headed in the right direction. Maybe in another week we can have another conversation and begin to move us in the direction of orange and subsequently yellow. If we as a county see our numbers drop as you have just described, that's when I'm calling CDPHE and demanding us to go back in the other direction from a color perspective. And with each of those color perspectives, if we can get back to orange, we're back to indoor seating.
Okay. Thank you.
Dr.
Okay.
Ryan, this is Terry. Can I ask you, is it your thought at all that by adding the additional level purple, public health, I feel like we're losing our teeth a little bit in trying to get people to adhere to the recommendations and the guidelines? Because, if we're adding another level, what's to say that we won't add another level after that? Do you think that we're losing a little bit of impact by including another level?
Terry, it's a great question, and I have dentures now. We've lost our teeth months ago as a collective group. This was sort of a last minute, and the LPHA, the public health directors, myself, and my peers have been asking for weeks and months for some sort of broader game plan, and this was sort of the last minute. Literally, we had a call late Sunday night going over this and trying to understand what does it mean. It's given us one step from closing, but to your point, how long, and we've asked this question a million times, how long is any one county going to be just hovering in this red and never going to purple, but never being able to go back? And what is it going to take? And to be quite honest, the state government lacks the will to do the right thing and shut everyone down for 2 weeks, make it a 2-week thing instead of this constant, well, there's only 20 counties now, not all of them are on board. In our opinion, collectively as a group, we don't think that's going to be as effective as if the governor said, we're shutting down the state for 2 weeks, everyone stay home, and it's going to be a hard pill to swallow. But guess what? It's only 2 weeks and we can move on after that. That was our preferred weeks ago mode from the public health director's perspective. But we only have so much leverage from the person who makes that final decision.
Right. Because a 2-week loss of income would be far less than, the 8 months of, this continual loss of income. If we could just, this is this is not an effective approach, it would seem. I think everybody's doing the best that we can, and I know you're just the messenger, Dr. Ryan, because I don't know without some sort of enforcement, which it doesn't seem like it's possible. It's frustrating.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's beyond frustrating, and I'm saddened that this country doesn't do quite what other countries are able to do to take populations.
No, I completely agree. When you have a population approach, but as you're all well aware, we've had no national response of any meaningful amount, no coordinated plan from the national government. The states have all been basically told you're on your own. And then within states, you're seeing that in spades now, where the state is saying, hey, we really are a fan of local control. Hey, counties, you guys are all on your own. That's a sure recipe for failure. If you look at places like New Zealand, Australia, South Korea, where they had an absolute national plan, that national plan was implemented across the entire country. And they're now functioning at a relatively normal level. They have a handful of cases across the entire country in all those countries on a daily basis that can manage them quite well. And society has gone back to normal. That's an example of when you listen to the experts and you do what the experts say, as opposed to America, who's leading the way in cases, fatalities, et cetera. We're a case of how not to respond to a pandemic. We're going to be the chapter in any epi or public health book, what not to do.
We got a couple meetings I have to attend, but yeah.
Hey, pancakes?
Same down there. Yeah, and we're doing Tuesday at.
Hey, thank you, Greg. Okay, any other questions that we need to ask Dr. Ryan before we let him go?
Okay, Dr. Ryan, I heard that that this order was based on 2 weeks. I personally don't think that that's probably very realistic. It's probably going to be going on a lot more than that. And do you think it's going to last the 2 weeks?
What do you mean by last 2 weeks? You mean it's going to be in force for 2 weeks and then we're going to go back to orange?
Yeah.
You know, Chip, on any other time of the year, I would say yes. But given that Thanksgiving is next week, and given the survey that was done at the high school, middle school of the teachers who plan to have dinner with others, my answer is probably not. If the previous holidays over the last 8 months are any indication, we're going to see a spike the likes of which this country's never seen in either direction of anything.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
I wish I had optimism, but I'm a reality-based, fact-based person, and the numbers aren't promising, particularly when you survey people who you've been talking to for 8 months about how you should do things and shouldn't do things, and 60% say we're going to do it anyway. So I'm going to start wearing a helmet to work because my head is getting very sore banging it against the wall day in and day out. My skull is getting tired.
I bet. Agreed. I'm angry.
Yeah. Get in line.
Enforcement, Sadie, we can answer that after Dr. Ryan is done here. So we'll answer that question in a moment. Okay, last chance for Dr. Ryan.
So I see there that question, what are hospital capacities at now? They're filling up. They're filling up quickly. The current estimate is that sometime by mid-December, late December, they will reach full capacity. Last Friday, the governor asked the hospitals for additional information on a daily basis and a weekly basis. It's my opinion that the governor felt like the information he was hearing from hospitals wasn't accurate. Hospitals have an incentive to paint a rosy picture because when the picture is rosy, they can do elective surgeries. And elective surgeries are their moneymaker, hands down. So the governor, feeling like he wasn't getting the full reality of it, has asked for additional information from hospitals. He's supposed to get tomorrow. I'm hoping to get that sort of information in a little more granular detail of what's really going on. But the modeling does not yet take into consideration Thanksgiving. It's really hard to model people's behavior around Thanksgiving into the model and determine whether we're going to run out of hospital beds in 3 weeks or in 6 weeks. So still trying to figure that one out.
Awesome. Thank you. That answers my question.
Do you have something, Evan?
This is Lindsay. I have a question that's, I mean, this is a different conversation to be had from this group, but since you're here, I've been hearing a lot of frustration. I mean, even myself having kids with the schools just going in and out of in-person remote. It's especially for the older kids. I have a high schooler who's really struggled with, you know, in and out, and now she's quarantined for 2 weeks and is still not able to participate in some of her classes because they're in person and not everyone's offering the remote for people in quarantine. So, I mean, at what point do the schools just say, okay, we're going to shut down until the end of the semester or just for the rest of the school year? Or, I mean, I know that's not ideal, but these kids are not getting any kind of consistency. And it's just really hard. I mean, it's a roller coaster ride for them versus just if it were to shut down.
Yeah.
Then
No,
there's some
Lindsay,
consistency.
Lindsay, I hear you. I have 3 kids of my own, 2 in high school and 1 in elementary. It really comes down to this: as a society, what do we value most in our society? Is it educating our kids and keeping our businesses open? Or is it having dinner parties and getting together with our friends and going to bars? That's literally the question that we have to ask ourselves, both from Clear Creek, but also more broadly in the state of Colorado and this country. I prefer to have businesses open and schools open. That's my priority. And so right now, what we're doing and working with the school district in Clear Creek County is the high school, we're testing the teachers now twice a week. And what we're doing, unfortunately, the week after Thanksgiving, they're going to be remote based on the survey of 60% of teachers saying we're going to have dinner with people who don't live with us. That has forced us to say, well, it's probably not a good idea then to bring them back right then after Thanksgiving, because that week is probably going to be a huge transmission week of virus from all those dinner parties they insisted on going to. So, but our plan is to test those teachers at the end of that remote week, identify those who are COVID positive. I'm sure there's going to be some, make them stay home, and then everyone else is going to go back to school for those 2 weeks before Christmas. I am determined to keep kids in school. Keeping our kids in school does a very good thing for our kids. It's far better learning environment than in their home. The other thing it does is it frees up parents. There's nothing worse than trying to work and have to entertain an elementary school kid or keep them on task during the day. That's very difficult. I know that from experience. So keeping our kids in school is our priority. And we're going to identify the teachers as quickly as we can and students who are sick. But we also need help from everyone to keep your kid home if they are sick. That's where we're seeing a lot of problems where kids are sent to school with perceived cold. Your child doesn't have a cold and they don't have the flu. If your child is exhibiting symptoms or you are, my money is on the COVID, not the flu and or a cold. So this is part of our challenge, is understanding that sort of thing. But we're determined to keep the kids in school. From a superintendent perspective and from the public health perspective, that's our priority.
And as Dr. Ryan mentioned, that I did a test Tuesday. Yay, I'm negative. So, you know, and that's unfortunate that just a common cold now, all of a sudden we have to say, I've got a runny nose and a headache. And first thing we have to think of is this is COVID, and this could become very serious. So, you know, the everything that wraps around this thing is just crazy. We've got a question here that I only read halfway, but I think it would behoove for you to answer this. With our local enforcement, we have our ordinance officer going around, and I verified yesterday that all businesses should be doing temp sheets for their employees. Is that correct, Dr. Ryan?
Yeah, however you want to keep track of it in your own place of business. I'm not going to tell people how to keep track of things. You should be monitoring just a basic symptom check, but also a temperature check. So the temperature check is really just identifying a small portion of people. They're sort of the low-hanging fruit, if you will, of people who would have a high temperature from the get-go. The symptom check is really something your employees should do before they even come to work. And asking themselves, do I have any of these? If the answer is yes to any of those, stay home. Showing up to work and having 10, 15, 20 minutes with your coworkers and then suddenly realizing you don't feel well and you haven't for an hour is not the time to do that. It's before you come to work. Do an assessment and ask your employees to do this. How are you feeling? Do you have any of these symptoms? If the answer is yes, call us and we'll deal with it there, rather than have you come in and give our other employees 15 or 20 minutes or an hour's worth of exposure. It just, we've had way too many of those cases where employees come in sick and they an hour into their shift decide finally that they're too sick to work. It's best to determine that before you even get to work.
The second part of this is I'm assuming that our enforcement officer asked or said that we were supposed to be doing a tracking log of visitors into our establishments. That's not the case though, is it?
No, I mean, right now, given that restaurants are no longer eat-in and retail stores, if someone's in your store for 5-10 minutes with a mask on and socially distanced, I don't really see any need for keeping track of who's in your store and who's not. I think if it was a bar and it was small enough where you had 20, 30 people in there, understanding who's in there, because the potential for transmission is exponentially higher in a bar or restaurant than it is in a retail store.
Did that answer your question, Sadie? Sadie? Okay. Okay.
Yes, that answers my question. Thank you, Mike.
All right. Thanks, Sadie. Okay. Any other questions for Dr. Ryan? Thank you so much again, Dr. Ryan, for coming in and informing this group and kind of keeping us up to date on what's going on and what you're doing and how you're keeping us safe and the direction you're taking us. As I've said on numerous meetings, thank you so much. You know, having you on board and our team here in Clear Creek County, it has been tremendous, and the information that you've been able to provide and the direction that you've been able to give has been tremendous. So thank you very much.
You're all very welcome. And I will continue to fight not only for your health and well-being, but for your businesses in trying to keep them as afloat as I possibly can from a public health perspective.
Yeah, I'd like for you to come down and have a burger with me someday.
Yeah, at the end of this, we're going to throw a huge bash in the county. I don't know who's going to fund it or where it's
Don't say that, because we don't want to do that and have an outbreak.
No,
Yes,
after it's over.
We will definitely have a party.
Let's go visit Chip. I heard he's buying all the plane tickets.
Everybody come over here.
Oh, we're going to Hawaii. There we go.
Why not?
Mike, I do want to say one last thing though, just to be on a positive note. There are vaccines coming. There is light at the end of the tunnel. I would just caution though, that tunnel is long. It's still several months long. And we need to double down on what we're doing now. Now is not the time to let our guard down, because the vaccine is coming. For the general population, it won't be around or available till April, May, realistically at the earliest. I can talk more logistics another time, but that's the reality. So the next several months are really going to be critical in terms of what we do as a county and as a state and as a country. And hopefully starting in sometime mid to late January, we get a national plan in place and sort of reel this ridiculous show back in.
Yeah, I heard something on the news this morning that really, they were talking about the vaccine and the early recipients of that. And they said that prisons and jails were going to be some of the first to get that, to get the shot. It really surprised, I guess I haven't really thought about it enough but it's just like, we've got people running around here, that could potentially die, and we're gonna vaccinate people that have killed people.
Mike, Mike, if there's anything I can advise you on, it's you shouldn't believe everything that you hear. The CDC has not yet put out who they're going to include in tier 1 completely, and the CDC is the one deciding that, who is in tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. So I wouldn't react to to what you hear. Right, we have 4 years of my head's a bobblehead now, trying to react to all this stuff.
All right.
So,
Okay. Thanks again, Dr. Ryan.
thanks everyone.
Okay. So now I want to kind of open it up discussion. Knowing first, I'd like to say that I'm very disappointed and frustrated with CDOT right now because they have not done what they have promised us to get our work in the parking lot done and get us back open, that we gain back our parking places that we've lost now. I'm very frustrated at them. Been talking with the project manager. He's frustrated with the contractors. It sounds like it's a back and forth battle between them about their scheduling and how they're getting this project done. There is some sort of bonus to be done by the end of the year. So I don't know why they're dragging on. It doesn't make sense. So I don't see by Thanksgiving that we're going to have our parking back. I think we're going to have to get through Thanksgiving holiday and not know how much longer that it will be before they complete that work. I'm not concerned about getting the parking lot paved. Let's just get those 70 parking places back that we're desperately needing. I just really want to open this up to a conversation. I've talked to a few people that have an idea that they would still like to try to do outdoor dining, either in bubbles or greenhouses or some sort of way of doing that. I know this was a large discussion for a couple of weeks about what we were going to do, and then of course we lost the parking, and the November 1st date that we were going to tear it down moved back to the last week of October, Halloween weekend, or actually before Halloween. Just so we had those 60 parking places back. I just kind of want to open it up on people's thoughts and ideas, and I want to talk about locations of our pickup areas. I know that we've been having some businesses call saying, hey, I want my own sign for this area. And what I would say is this was a collaborative decision of this group. Nobody was selfish to say me, 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 me. Everybody was very thoughtful of everybody else's businesses. And I think that we have created areas for pickup like that that will benefit everybody, whether it's right in front of your business or it's going to be right across the street or you know, 2 buildings down. So I'm standing strong on where we've designated these pickup areas for now should stay. And we adaptive management if people feel that that maybe we should move it here or there. Discussion, let's just start talking. Steve?
I personally haven't really been able to witness the downtown setup because I'm quarantining myself right now. But starting tomorrow, I'm gonna go have a look. I know that we've been doing some to-go burritos in the morning on the west side, and it's slowly getting some traction. It's working out pretty good.
Okay. Let's see. Greg?
I don't know if we need 4 spaces to do that. It seems like that takes a lot. But I know that we're sharing it, so that does make sense since it is Tommyknockers, ourselves, 2 brothers, we all share the same one. But you know, I think for now we just kind of reassess and see how much is being used. You know, either way, that's not a big deal. That's just something to think about, whether we want to give up as many spots as we have. We can't predict how this is going to go. There certainly was interest in to-goes at the very beginning of it, but it seemed like it really tapered off over time. But, you know, like Chip's question about how long he thought, personally, my guess is it's going to be January 15th before we get dine-in. It's going to take that long. I think that might be a realistic, and that's if the numbers dictate that. So, yeah, as far as the spaces, I think that they're fine. I'm just not sure if we need 4, but maybe we do.
All right, thanks, Greg. I had a discussion with Greg earlier today, and you know, talking about where restaurant owners talking about, you know, where is that brink that we say this doesn't make sense for us to even be open. You know, we'll never generate enough money to pay our employees and pay our, you know, to pay for food, if you will. So it was a very good conversation, and I appreciate that, Greg. Also, I talked with Marcel, and Marcel has some ideas that he would like to bring before the group and some thoughts. And if you notice, Marcel, our conversation, I had some concerns. So I called Kelly Babian and asked him to be on the line with us today.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Kelly, for joining the call. I just kind of want to see how we can do what we do best in Idaho Springs. I feel like this community has done a really great job of being creative within the limits that we've got, obviously with keeping public safety in mind. You know, I'm at an advantage with my mall space, you know, to utilize that for some outdoor structures. I've got some, you know, greenhouses that I can use, and I want to look into how I can get these heated, if at all. And if that's a success, then we can use that as a model for the rest of the city, maybe on sidewalks or on any kind of parking spot closures, something that is a very controlled space where only people are allowed in if they're from one household. I mean, we've already enforced the mask mandate. We've already enforced, you know, contact tracing. You know, I've had no breakouts in my restaurant. I understand that we've, you know, haven't had the counts that we're experiencing right now, but I need to find some solutions because I already furloughed 30 people this morning. And I'm going to have to furlough everybody, including myself, if we don't find a way to generate revenue. So I'm fighting for the town. I'm fighting for staff. I'm fighting for myself. And I don't want to, you know, beat my head against a brick wall like Dr. Ryan, but I do want to know how we can keep people safe and provide what is going to be a very needed resource, because whether we lock down or not, people are going to drive up I-70, whether the ski resorts are open or not. You know, when we didn't have anything open, people were going to the backcountry. I know that presents its own headaches for, you know, first responders and stuff, but I want to be able to provide a safe, responsible product, you know, an environment in this town, which, you know, is poised to be probably one of the most popular destinations for everybody that's going to be cooped up in their houses for the next 4 weeks. So if we get creative with how we can get these people in our outdoor spaces safely and comfortably, I really want to see what codes we have that are limiting us and what those codes are written for. You know, if we have codes that are protecting us from, you know, times that don't feel like these times, then we have to see, you know, again, I want to put fire hydrants by all my exterior enclosures. I want to put, you know, GF switches on all my extension cords that I'm proposing. I mean, this is not going to be something that I'm just going to half-ass. And, you know, with the funds that we're, you know, hopefully getting from the county through this grant to winterize our outdoor structures, it can be an anchor for employees, for guests that are coming through, and hopefully we can set the standard for the entire state and show people how it's being done. Because down in Denver, there's all kinds of restaurants that are doing outdoor dining in these greenhouses and bubbles, and, you know, they all seem to be meeting code requirements. So I really want to find the yes in this situation for so many reasons.
So my biggest thought when Marcel and I was discussing that, the heating of these units, he said, you know, I understand once we get somebody out of there, we disinfect the whole inside of this thing. No problem. I said, so what about heating? He said, well, we're looking at electric space heaters. And that's when my fire authority board hat went on and said, well, wait a minute, that we needed to bring in Chief Babian to kind of discuss on how we could successfully do that. Or is this just not something that is safe, could be dangerous to our staffs, our pedestrians, and you know, our visitors to our community. Kelly, can you give us some insight of what wouldn't work, and maybe an idea of what we could do in making this happen? You're on mute, Kelly.
You got me now?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, for starters, the code requirements are not sensitive to time or issues such as COVID. They're there as a life safety component to make sure that everybody's safe with buildings and such. So anything that's put up out there is probably requires a building permit, and it would be in your best interest to run your ideas of what you want through the building code officials so that you don't get in a situation where if you put something up and building code issue or fire code issue comes up, you have to take it down because it's not compliant. There are requirements for fire resistance on canopy type structures. There are wind load requirements, snow load requirements. You know, we are in a wind tunnel, so that's an issue. Occasionally we do get pretty good snowstorms. They require electrical permits if you're going to be putting electrical appliances in there. And depending on the fuel source for heaters, possibly need a permit for the gas lines. The most easiest way to put heat in a temporary structure would be a propane patio heater. They burn very clean, so your carbon monoxide potential is very low. They are designed to turn off if something gets displaced and they fall over. So those are your safest, quickest way to provide heat. Electrical, any electric source to power something outside requires a weather resistant electrical assembly, the best way to put it. And extension cords are not acceptable for anything interior or outside. Construction grade power cards can be used, but there again, they need to have weather tight connections, which you're probably not going to be able to accomplish. You also have to consider snow removal and snow storage and safe travel of ambulances and fire trucks. All that all goes together. That's a quick nutshell.
Okay, Marcel, any thoughts? Because it sounds like, do you think you could make it with propane heaters in those structures?
I could do small propane heaters. These are ventilated, that pop, the top of them pop open. So I don't feel like I need an application that big. I mean, the electric that I was looking at were all 1200 watts. So they're very small. And I was planning on putting these up on plastic, you know, platforms to protect from snow melt and stuff like that. You know, I'm really trying to think creatively here quickly. I've got a lot of people depending on me to do that. So I'll just continue to kind of chase this up and figure out how we can make these things work. I mean, if they're working in Denver, there has to be a way that we can get it up here.
And that's why I wanted to bring Kelly on to give us some guidance. And I think he's done a really good job of telling us how we can make this work. So,
Marcel, was it the little greenhouses that you have the ventilation on the top?
Yeah.
I always thought that the propane heaters, even though they do burn clean, that the fumes.
I don't want to put a propane heater in a greenhouse. It sounds like a catastrophe. I just don't want to do that.
Yeah, I don't see that at all, even if that's the best option.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I don't even need to put heat in them. I just need a place where I can get people to get into a structure that is a dining room. Because I mean, outdoor dining is a great idea when it's, you know, 50 degrees, but we're not getting into that season. Go ahead, John.
Marcel, are you able to get the plans and kind of set up that somebody that you know has gotten one of these approved in another location? Because if you had that, it might make it easier to look at the code path forward and how they did that, so that we could look at if it could be replicated here, if we had like a system in place that's already been approved, maybe.
Okay.
Is there a challenge? Is there a challenge on putting a permanent structure, and that's basically a permanent structure on the mall? Because I thought they needed to be able to maintain fire access.
Yeah, no permanent structures can be on the mall.
So is
Or
that,
encroachment agreements are for, well, that is a fire and EMS access at some point and some time if it needed to be used. To put a permanent structure on, yeah, I don't think that the city would approve a permanent structure across the mall.
The fire and EMS needs to come if there's people in the buildings. There's nobody in the building.
well, if your building catches on fire though, you want to have them be able to get to it to put the fire out, whether there's people in there or not.
I mean, frankly, if a fire happens in my building at this point, what's the difference?
Hey, Marcel, the structures you're thinking of putting up, are they open on two sides?
No.
If they're not open on two sides, I believe they're considered indoors.
But I think there's only going to be one table in each structure.
One table per structure.
But again, just to be clear, to make sure that we don't, trap ourselves, I believe if the structure is closed on four sides, it is considered indoors, not outdoors.
The door doesn't have to be closed on the fourth
Two
side.
sides, I think. I'm not going to be doing it, but something for you to check. I believe you have to be wide open on two sides for ventilation to cross through to be considered outdoors.
I mean,
They are doing it down in Denver.
Yeah.
What I think that requirement is if you're going to have a tent 20 by 20 and you're going to have multiple tables inside that tent, measuring it off, getting your capacity in there, determining it, well, then if it's enclosed, yeah, you can't have in because they would still have to have two sides open. Yeah, that's something that we would need to check into. If it is a 6 by 6 unit that you have one table in that 6 people can sit in, all in the same family, same household, not even same family, same household. So we need to check into that to see how that.
Yeah, I did hear that you had to have two sides open. If you've got a roof and all four sides closed, that is an indoor structure, and we're trapping ourselves.
Yeah, I read that also. Is there a possibility of putting a structure, if you can't do it in the mall, can you take some spaces out in the parking lot right next to the dumpster enclosures? Would that be a possibility if the other isn't workable?
That goes back to, do we have the desire to take up more parking and eliminating more parking?
Well, if we don't have any seating we're not
going to have any parking if we don't have people there. All the restaurants are closed.
We don't need all the parking with everybody closed.
I think parking is the last thing we need to worry about. We need to worry about how to get the people that are driving up here into a safe environment. I've been in the business of not killing people my entire time here. Like food poisoning, safety. My fire inspections are all current. I want to figure out how to do this the right way. But if I can't get some kind of viable outdoor option that includes some kind of weather that isn't 50 degrees, I'm done.
Mike, I've got a question for Kelly.
I would say that, that's what this group is about. If we want to try to use some parking spaces, I do not have a problem with that. Carla?
I've got a question for Kelly, and it goes back to having permanent structures on the mall and needing the fire access. Is there any provision in the code that would allow fire access to happen through the parking lot? Like, why do we need, as opposed to having that Idaho Street as fire access?
There's potential for that, and that's something that we could review and meet and look at.
What are we talking about? A permanent structure?
Well, it would be putting like a greenhouse or whatever that is in Idaho Street, on Idaho Street. So Marcel could use his greenhouses, put them on Idaho Street. They'd become permanent. You could put a heater in them because then perhaps they could connect back to the building itself, and it becomes a permanent structure. I mean, it's, maybe for perpetuity, it is always that way. And we've worked out the fire code issue, so we don't have to keep Idaho Street open. We can allow outdoor seating to happen.
there would be building code issues there that
Sure.
need to be addressed by the code official.
Of course.
And when we start talking about a greenhouse on the mall is not permanent. That's not a permanent. I mean,
Well, it's not permanent. It may not be permanent in your vernacular right now, but it's permanent in building code vernacular, which allows us to have building safety for fire and life safety issues. So yes, it may not be permanent for always and forever, but in building code, to meet the life safety code at this moment or tomorrow or ever, really, it's considered permanent.
If you have a fire at westbound and down and you have structures out in the mall, how do you get back in there to be able to fight the fire? That's the challenge.
Right. And we'd have to look at that just in a plan sort of view and figure that out. And that's what Kelly's saying, is that then we have to make sure that it meets fire code and it meets building code. But if we can figure that out and we're allowed to put a structure on the mall, then it's an extension of your restaurant that possibly you could attach the heaters to your building and it be a safe environment.
How about Citizens Park? And also, how about the parking lot behind the phone company back there? They've got a parking lot behind their building that's adjacent to you. The Citizens Park is not too far away, be not easy to service, but again, there's some room there that conceivably could put something in. Or at the Masons, Masonic Lodge.
I want to hear from our Public Works Director, John Bordoni.
I was just going to say, in reference, when you speak of permanent structures, you have to keep in mind
water in
the mall area is a high pressure natural gas line that XL has easements on. So it couldn't be any type of permanent structure on that mall area.
I'm not talking about a permanent structure. It's going to be something that could easily be.
No, we keep referencing permanent and then we keep referencing movable structures. So I'm just saying nothing permanent can be built on that mall currently.
Yeah, it's a difference between what it's zoned for. So it's not zoned for a permanent structure, so to speak, but it would be, but building code would look at it as a permanent structure. Essentially, they're going to look at it to make sure that it meets the public and life safety concerns of the building code, but zoning wise, it can't be a permanent structure.
Yeah, and when I hear permanent structure, my idea, it has its own foundation. So each pod would have to have its own foundation. And for us to take mall area and city property and to do that, this would have to be direction from council.
No, that's not at all what I'm proposing. I'm telling you that the building code itself would see it having to meet all of the other aspects. It doesn't mean it actually has to have, just like a tent. Remember when we talked about tents? Tents would be are considered a permanent structure if they're up for, I can't remember the amount of days, 180 days or something. So it's just how the building code sees it so that it can protect the life safety of the people using the space.
I have two things really quick. Yeah. So I just put a link in the chat. It's for the Colorado Outdoor Dining website. I don't know who's sharing that. John, maybe. Here is the link. So the state has already gone through a whole process to identify inexpensive structures that fit within the code. So if we look through this, we may be able to find something. There's also the grant opens on November 30th for businesses to be able to apply for funding to build these. So as long as we can figure out the specific details of where we're putting them and how we want to make sure that they're following Idaho Springs code, we have the resources to be able to build them. So I just want to make sure everyone has access to that. They've already done one round of funding, and I think everyone that applied probably got a good bit of chunk, a good chunk of money. Everything I'm hearing is the state has a lot of money and they're trying to get rid of it.
I guess I have a question. This is Lindsay. I mean, if we're talking about doing this, we should probably, or, you know, we're hearing one business talking about it, but we should probably look at doing this collectively, because I don't see how, I mean, and Marcel, tell me if I'm wrong, but how many structures are you talking about? Like if it's 3 and each structure can only have 1 table in it, does that even move the needle for you guys? Does it?
Got room for 8, which would give me 52 seats.
Okay.
And, you know, I mean, I'm fortunate. I've got a large footprint. You know, if we could close down Minor Street again and use the sidewalks as easement for these structures, and then the Minor Street is a sidewalk and it can be easily cleared out for snow removal. That's where people walk. And again, I don't want to take away people's storefronts because I know that that's the way they make money, but
we could not block the sidewalks. So putting structures on the sidewalks would be an option. TJ?
Marcel and I talked about this the other day, and he shared with me the structures that he's looking to put up. We were looking at those same structures for both our back patio and for the possibility of using some parking spots out in front of our building. I know that, you know, especially with Christmas and holiday shopping or what have you, I understand the need for retail to keep spots open along their area. But to echo some of the other points like Nick just made in the comments, if we don't have people up here, parking is not going to be an issue anyway. And if we're talking about, you know, 2-3 spots, you know, and then plus my back patio, I mean, that's probably 6 structures for us, which would make a huge difference, and it would move the needle, at least for us.
Does anybody feel that we're too late in the game to start deciding to shut the street down? Because we heard from a lot of businesses that, you know, having the streets closed has affected them, and they would really like to be able to have vehicular access to their businesses through the wintertime. I've always left this up to decisions mainly for the downtown business group to come up with, and then to bring it to the city council for discussion if we wanted to do, you know, to allow that to happen. I'm open to any ideas. Chief, any thoughts on trying to do this at the last minute? Does it make sense?
I don't think there's a problem with doing it at the last minute. I mean, I think, you know, if we pulled it together as a mercantile community in the residents downtown, I mean, I think it's easy to pull together enforcement wise. You know, again, you know, we're limited in what resources I can give you as far as, you know, security at night and people down there, as we are finite. I've got a caseload myself today. I think the biggest challenge is going to be public safety in the realm of snow removal. And then of course, everything that's in Kelly's purview, you know, where you can and can't have extension cords. I think emergency access is huge. I think, Kelly, are your ladder trucks, I mean, would they ever need to be that close to the building that they would be on the mall?
It's hard to say, and it's incident specific.
Okay. And is the mall wide enough to accommodate one of your ladder trucks?
It is if needed.
Okay.
Probably we would put a truck in there, but access to move around and work is critical, and that gets worse as snow and other objects are in there.
So I think the thing is, you know, we're looking at access for first responders, apparatus, and then the snow removal is huge. And just to reiterate, it's not a matter of simply plowing or shoveling the snow. Wherever we allocate for outside use, the snow has to physically be removed from the area. I like the idea. I'm sorry, I forgot who suggested it, but that if we were to close 16th Street between Minor and the Vintage Moose, I don't think that would have huge impacts on ingress and egress. So I think that's plausible. Public safety, again, the restrooms are going to need, constant attention. I'm in a meeting. I'm sorry. Are going to need constant attention, and somebody's going to be responsible for cleanup. I mean, the trash is constantly going to have to be removed. There's going to have to be constant decontamination of food services. I think you guys can figure that out.
So here's what I would say. One, if we get to that point, I would say that the parking places and the width of a parking place would be usable for outdoor greenhouse or whatever. We keep Minor Street open one way, and you can, so that would give the full width. We keep it one way, so those spots in front of Lindsay's place or Urbano's place, that people can still, if they're not using that for their outdoor seating, that they still have somewhere that people can park in front of there and get to their business.
Okay.
I would not support closing the street down completely.
One thing I want to point out, though, you have to remember, even with the 8-foot width or depth of the parking spaces, people are still going to be sitting immediately adjacent to a thoroughfare without any kind of barrier.
Well, that's where I was going.
Yeah.
And barriers around that seating area, and we can't use what Tommy Knockers was using, because we're going to have icy road, and the chance of a vehicle hitting its brakes and sliding into something, into a aluminum or a metal fencing, is not going to work. We have to have, and I would say up to Jersey barriers, something heavy enough that if a car slides into it, that it's going to stop. It's not going to move. It's going to push that car off.
Hey, Mike, what about, someone had an idea at one point about bringing in trailers and parking them, and the pods are on the trailers. I mean, is that something that, so then they'd be, lifted up and higher than sidewalk level?
For a car to be driving down the road, I will not allow, as the mayor of Idaho Springs and the safety of our community, if we have seating area with it through the winter, that the potential of ice and snow on that street and the potential for a car to slide into a barrier that will not deflect a vehicle is absolutely no. We would have to find Jersey barriers to do it surrounding that area.
Are the Jersey barriers like the concrete ones that are movable?
Let's get CDOT to bring us some barriers, since they've been messing with us so much.
Hey, Mike, my feeling is that, I mean, I do think we're going to run into an issue with two sides being open, but obviously they would do a little bit of homework on that. But I think that there's going to be a requirement that two sides be open on a structure. And I think takeout's going to be a really big part of the business now. And whatever we do on Minor Street, the last thing we want to do is make it more difficult for people to do their takeout.
Well, and that's why that the businesses would only be able to use the parking places in front of their building. So basically they're doing their own damage that somebody can't pull right up in front of their business. And
I can't survive on takeout.
Yeah, takeout works well for pizza, and that's so good for breakfast and steaks and stuff like that.
There's no model that works for me with takeout.
How about the 16th Street? How about taking 16th Avenue and closing what was mentioned, and do a bunch of stuff there, and maybe make that a whole center with 16th Avenue, Citizens Park, and put a bunch of that everybody can use. There's some things I think that I saw and what they were doing for liquor licenses and that, they were just really making it much more liberal, so that you could possibly do something where everybody can be involved in that area, and make it kind of a town square restaurant, kind of, everybody can, maybe use it or something like that. A whole, it could be fun.
I mean, what's good for me is good for everybody. I hope. I'd love to get this community model going. I mean, if the Vintage Moose could have 4 tents where people could, I mean, if my brother's bar is doing bubbles and people are eating chicken fingers and drinking my brother's bar beer, people are going to go out. It's you know.
If it's as far away as 16th Avenue, could that work for you?
Yeah. I mean, I'll take whatever I can get.
Yeah.
One of the things I'd like to point out, you know, I some of you might know I do have a little bit of a background in special event planning, South by Southwest and the events in downtown Austin. Just remember, whatever you plan is fluid. It's dynamic. It's not static. So if we try something and it doesn't work, we can fine tune it, we can adjust, we can move. So to make that work though, the only thing that we must do is not make it too complicated.
Okay, well, just for fairness sake, everybody should consider the 16th Street doesn't work for everybody. Then I would think that we should do 15th also. I know that there has to be one in and one out, but why does it? That's
Well,
just
here's
that's not.
That's a good point, but if we do that, we may have to go. Right now, we have two-way traffic on 17th and 14th. 14th is tough to navigate because you got to cross 15th diagonally. So if we've closed 16th, 15th, and 16th, you know, we always have to constantly consider, and Kelly appreciates this, is that we have to always have the ability to get in and out of areas promptly. So now if we close half of 16th and all of 15th or 15th south of Minor, that just makes it a little bit more complicated for us to get in there.
It needs to be fair. You don't get use of the park and then right across the street, you close right there. It would need to be, you get the park because that covers on 16th, but then allow us to close 15th. And you know, I don't want to suppress anybody's ability to get through this, but it needs to be fair.
I see your,
Are we
no, I see your,
Are we talking about communal tables that any business can, we set a bunch of them up, any business can go.
Well, what are you talking about on 15th? Isn't that what you're referring to, is making like a common area for everybody?
That's kind of what I was talking.
See, then that goes back to who's responsible for cleaning each one up.
And logistically, that just is, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I want us to keep coming with ideas though, but we just need to consider everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Kelly, go ahead. And I'll get you next, Andy.
Everything you do, you got to consider access for public safety. 15th Street has access for residential units on the second floor of the building there on where the candy store used to be.
Right, so that won't work.
We don't want to close the street.
Yeah.
The stuff you had up this summer on the street was easy to move if we needed to move it to work a fire or an incident on that street. The more permanent type of a structure that you want to put up, the more that's going to slow us down for a response. If you want to put those in the parking lot, I see that as more doable than in the streets or on the mall. 16th Street, when you block that, it blocks our access to the bar there, that building. The mall, you know, we can work around, but you really need to get the building official to comment on putting structures adjacent to buildings, requirements for separation, all kinds of complicated stuff. And that puts us back into that parking lot with those spaces that are closest to the mall. I think that is probably doable with the examples that Alyssa put on the screen. So lots to consider there. The more solid your structure is, the more it's going to require for code and access issues.
I don't think closing any streets is a good idea.
Well, let's not close streets. Let's look at how each business can have either a pickup parking spot or a parking spot where they put a structure. If I could, we should have handicapped spaces on Minor Street, instead of behind my building. I've had complaints from guests that have to walk all the way around to get access. If we move those handicap spots to the front side, maybe I could take those. If everybody could have like a parking spot based on their square footage of their business, if they can each have a parking spot that's available to them, then maybe we can make this happen.
And actually have like a realistic barrier for those, because that certainly is a big concern. What the mayor was saying, if you put a couple of those greenhouses, they're going to have the Jersey barriers. So that
we've got resources everywhere. Give me a construction yard, I'll call them, I'll get them out.
We've got Jersey barriers that we could probably get temporary from CDOT right behind us.
Yeah,
so,
let me give those guys a case of beer and they'll leave them in our backyard. So if the parking spots is something that we can do, then let's do it. I have got very little time to save what few jobs are left in this building. I need to move quickly.
Andy? Andy?
So I think that the concept this summer worked well with closing down Minor. We don't want to close down the street, but we want to make it safe. And I think the concept was that each business was able to apply to use space in the street that was adjacent to its property. And I think if we try to stick to that concept, I think we can make something work here. And here's a thought. I know, and this is kind of a distillation of ideas that have been brought up before, is what about the north side of Minor Street is going to be typically a lot more pleasant and a lot more manageable for outdoor seating, because you don't have the shading, the icing as much on that side. And what if we obtained Jersey barriers and blocked off the parking spots, the parallel parking spots on the north side of Minor for those 3 blocks, and then the businesses can use those spaces as they wish. If they want to put up a temporary structure with no sides but a heater, I think there are going to be a lot of days where those could be used. Some people are more hardy in eating or having a beer outside than others. And then on the south side, we reconfigure that parking to be diagonal. And I know that's a little out of the box, but that way the businesses on the north side of Minor have kind of the same opportunity as the businesses on the south side in using the mall for the most part. Tommyknockers is fortunate to have the west side of their building. You've got 2 blocks that have access to the alley. And I think the same thing could apply there, where we coordinate with the building official, with the fire chief, make sure that whatever temporary structure we put up, if it's a metal frame structure with just a top on it and heated in a safe manner, I think that could help us make better use of the mall and make better use of those parking spaces on the north side of Minor. The Jersey barriers, I think, could be installed fairly quickly. The restriping could be done fairly quickly. And then I think the businesses, we could work with the businesses to try to come up with some structures that make sense, whether they're individual pods, whether they're a 10 by 10 or 12 by 12 tent that's properly anchored, meets the snow loads, is safe. So I think that might be a concept. And if we make it one way going westbound, those diagonal spots, when the weather is bad or it gets slick, and I'm kind of thinking of John Bordoni and how that's managed, people are backing out of the spot going downhill. So, we won't have hopefully as much of the problem of people trying to back out of a diagonal spot going uphill and hitting their wheels. So I just throw that out as an idea. I think I've been trying to think with all the conversation that's been happening here and all the thoughts and concerns we've had, what can we do fairly quickly to help businesses do something to provide outdoor seating in a safe manner? And I think both the mall could be used with some temporary structures, and so could those parking spaces on the north side of Minor.
is going to be difficult to find structures. What Alyssa gave was an excellent source, but isn't each one of those going to have to meet some type of codes?
That, we're gonna have to bring our building official back in to give us direction on that. Andy, you think you can call to see if maybe he has a few minutes right now to jump on with us? John Kane, you were gonna say something?
Yeah, I was gonna just say that if those structures have been vetted by a lot of communities now, and so it may be worth reaching out to some of the different city managers or potentially other people in cities where these have been approved, and just look and see what people have done and what code paths have been followed to get them in place. I mean, maybe one of the questions is, if it's really about, like Chief said, if we can make it simpler and it's better, maybe the requirement for heat is something that's holding us up, that we don't need to necessarily, I think we all want to be warm, but is it really an issue like for 40 degrees? I mean, can people dress for the weather? I mean, if they're coming to Idaho Springs, it's a little bit different than going to my brother's bar, because they're coming here specifically to go to the mountains, and they'll know what the weather is going to be when they get here.
Yeah, we're going to be busier on the nicer days anyway. This heating thing is anything I can do to activate whatever night business I have. Otherwise, I'll just have to close at 4, which is fine. I'll do whatever I can with what I got. But I mean, I need 50 seats to keep this place running.
Hey, Mike, could we maybe look at having another meeting either later today or tomorrow and try to get someone on the call with us that is doing this, that we can kind of get some feedback from and then try to move it forward?
Absolutely. No, I like that. I like that. So Andy's trying to get a hold of our building official. I've asked John Kane, he's going to bring up our downtown area so we can kind of get a visual of kind of what we're talking about here, what Marcel's talking about behind his building and everything. Can you zoom down on it a little bit, John?
That's my tightest.
So let's start out behind Marcel's building. So it sucks you can't see my pointer. So yeah, John. So are these the parking places that you're talking about wanting to take up, Marcel? Are you talking about on the mall or right there on the?
Well, it sounds like the mall is not an option for me, correct?
I'm sorry, say that again.
It sounds like the mall is not an option for these structures.
I would have to defer that to fire and EMS and
I mean, I don't, unless we come up with some kind of creative system for me to make sure that you guys can move them if there's an emergency. The other thing is I'm going to be putting, anchors in, I'm going to be putting these on plastic pallets, bolted into the plastic pallets. And then on the inside, there'll be the steel tables. So they're, as far as permanent goes, like they're going to be windproof. Now, if you got to move them to the side with a battle axe, then, be my guest to save lives. But, I think the parking spaces sounds like something that's going to create a lot of revenue. But again, I would need like 8 of them. So, that's.
Giving up those 16 places directly behind your, right there behind the mall, those 16 spots there.
Yeah.
You would say that that's what you would like to do. So people that are serving, they're going to walk out, come across the mall and serve in those.
And yeah, it'll be packed every weekend. People see it from the highway, they come into town.
I'm okay with that as well, because I'm hearing loud and clear that the downtown businesses are not really concerned about parking right now. So I'm okay with that. Any other businesses have any ideas?
I think the north side, because it does get some sun, certainly with barriers, we would do something definitely.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So let's go on down to your building, Greg, and let's look at Greg's building. So your width of your building is how long? How many parking places do you think that you would like to use?
I would do 3. I'd fit as many of the little greenhouses or whatever structure, which we have about 50 feet, I think, total. The one on the furthest left is not part of ours. It's more from the corner to where it's white only. Yeah, right there. Yeah, so we're right around, that far, 60 feet. 66. So we're 3 lots. Okay.
Greg, I'll send workers from my business over to your business to help clear snow.
We certainly could join forces.
And we're gonna have TJ involved in that too. So
I got one question about all these. Are we gonna have to file for all new liquor variances? Like we did, is this gonna require an application with the state, the same thing that we had to go through to do the front? Because we're gonna be serving liquor in them?
I don't know how long those variances were for when y'all did those. Is there a date on those? How long?
They did ask for a date, but when I put on my application was as long as is allowed. Is what
I got an email from Diane yesterday. I was asking her how permanent that variance was, and she said it's just kind of until all this COVID stuff is over.
Okay, so we can keep those in force.
You might need to change the variance just because you're changing your footprint.
We might need to change the variance. I'm sure Diane will send me a very polite letter telling me I need to adjust my encroachment agreement.
Okay, so 60 feet. John Bordoni, how long are those Jersey barriers?
They're about 10 foot long, 3 foot high, and 3 foot at the base. So a typical parking spot, I think, is about 8 foot wide. So depending on where you set those in the street, you're gonna have about 5 foot to work with between the barrier and the curb.
And the curb. Do you think that's going to be enough room? What size are your greenhouses, Marcel?
They're 6.5 by 8 feet.
So it's just a little bit. Okay, they're 10 foot, really only 10 foot. So you're going to need almost 7 of those lined up for those 3 parking places. Oh, no, that's only 30 feet. 3 parking places is only 30 feet. So
I was imagining the temporary concrete barriers they use on the highway, the ones that are thin, maybe only like 18 inches wide, but like 6 feet long. That's what I was picturing.
Well, yeah, those aren't 3 feet wide at the bottom, are they, John?
They're very close to that, yes.
Because if you remember, they have those, they bevel out.
They have a bevel out, so they are that wide. Okay, I didn't realize they were that wide.
Do you want me to pull up a spec on one?
Sure. I didn't want you to take the screen off though.
So one question I have on Jersey barriers, John, I don't know if you have this answer, if we can look into it. I know the Jersey barriers on the interstate are probably different specs where you got high speed traffic versus maybe Jersey barriers for low speed roads like Minor that obviously still got to be able to stop a car, but we're not going to have cars going more than 25, 30 miles an hour. Typically. So are there smaller size Jersey barriers, concrete Jersey barriers that are made for different situations than maybe the interstate?
I'm sure that they are, but the only ones that I've dealt with are the ones that are typically on the interstate.
Okay. And I was thinking of the interstate ones because we know we could probably get those pretty quickly and we could install those. And if we made Minor one way, we can put the Jersey barriers part way out into the street, and we'd only have to do it where the bump outs don't occur. And then again, if we restripe the parking spaces so they're diagonal going westbound on the south side there, we're going to not lose as much parking. We'll still have a fair amount of parking.
I don't know if the street is going to be wide enough to make diagonal parking.
Yeah, I'd be worried. You got a car diagonally, you're at least sticking out 6 to 7 feet. Yeah, I don't know if that we should go that far by restriping Minor and trying to do that. I really do. I think we want to keep the south curb line. Where was I going with that? I think we want to keep the south curb line where we could actually push over a little bit, give a little bit more, since we're going to be one way. Actually, those barriers could set out a little bit further from that curb. And we
They're
could
32
still
and
have,
a quarter inches at the bottom.
I'm
How
sorry.
does everybody feel about one way?
Well, no. That's what I would say. If we do this, it has to be one way.
Okay.
So we can't maintain two ways, and we're not going to close it down. Yeah, one way, definitely. And I believe Chief said west to east. Chief?
Well, Andy brought up a good point that it's on an incline. I think probably traffic flow, the most effective way would be west to east. But I'll be honest with you, I really don't have a very firm opinion on it at this point.
Okay. John, how wide are those Jersey barriers at the bottom?
32 and a quarter inches.
So almost 3 feet. John, see, our public works, that's why we have him on. He know, and after what, 40 years or something at CDOT, we shouldn't have even questioned you. But with that, like again, what I said mean is we could actually, since it's going to be one way, as long as we leave that 14-foot drive lane down there, not to say that the businesses would be able to come out to the middle of the street, but I think we have a little bit of wiggle for these barriers. So Andy has said that Dan Wester will be on with us in about 10 minutes. Somebody, Diane Brees is going to join us also for encroachments, questions and things like that. So let's move on down just a little bit. Lindsay, Randy, down in front of y'all's place. What do you think? You just want to leave those parking places open? Does either one of you have desire to block that off and create some outdoor dining areas there?
From my standpoint, it's still that unknown of what's the structure have to look like. If it has to be open on two sides facing east and west, just using that as an example, then it may be easier for me to use them as parking places, because I just think that the temperature is going to be so questionable. So I still have questions in terms of what would make the most sense for us.
Okay, Lindsay?
Yeah, I mean, our breakfast has definitely picked up, and I love having the spaces because now we're marketing that on Facebook and whatnot. So yeah, definitely.
You'd want your parking places. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Mike, maybe when Dan joins us, he'll be able to answer the question about the makeup of the structures.
Okay, yeah. We ran into, and after the fact, whenever we did our criteria for how we could build out, we know that Mountain Prime ran into a problem because if you look, they've got that big bump out that really created a problem for them, and we had to redo. I'm assuming, TJ, that you would like those two parking places to try to set up something there for sure, right?
Yeah, I mean, we'll take whatever we can get, and whatever we can maximize. We can go out in front of Paul's Shop again. Whatever the city thinks we can do effectively, we'll take it.
Okay.
And Mike, this is Lindsay. Sorry. I mean, so we just want our parking spaces to be able to use for the drive up is what we're really going to be pushing. So just the drive up, but no structures.
Right. So no barriers there. Parking place is the same. All right. Let's see. I want to talk, Nick. Thanks for joining us today. What's your idea? Are you there, Nick? Lexi? Okay, he must have had to take off. All right, let's talk about Tommy Knockers, or let's do Bojo's first. Chip, what's your idea? Do you think that you would like to try to use those parking places out on the other side of the mall? What is your thought?
I gotta excuse when I'm sneezing here. What was your question again?
So obviously you want all your parking places up front to be available. So you're not, and it's southern, northern facing, so you're not going to get any sun. So
No, we don't want to put any structures.
So behind, you've got some tables on the mall. I think they've already been removed.
Yeah, they've already pulled them off. We've got tables. We've got that patio area that they've got that set up pretty well, so they can utilize that. But I'm not looking at really doing any additional exterior dining other than that. For me,
Okay.
it's probably more important to be able to have a pickup area for people picking up to-goes. Because again, pizza, it's one thing we're fortunate. Pizza does travel well, and so we're doing a lot of to-go business.
Yeah, and it's a little unfortunate that you actually would be right by the dumpsters. So, okay. Asta, I saw you on the line. Are you on the meeting? Are you here, Asta? Asta? Okay. Linda, you're in this block too. What's your idea?
I'm thinking about the Main Street. They seem to have a larger breakfast crowd. And, we're not busy in the morning. So if they wanted to take spots in front of our store, that would be fine with me. There is another store, though, between us.
Okay. And we don't have Josh on, but I would suspect Josh would want to try to do something in front of his place as well. Randy, any thoughts for Josh on that? You're on mute.
Yeah, I would think that you're probably right, Mike. I would think that he would lean that way, but it's certainly easy for us to ask.
Sure. Okay. Tommy Knockers. Steve?
Yep. For us, we're having pretty good luck using those west side spots because where those 3 cars are right now, that's no parking. So that's a pretty wide open spot. I did submit some paperwork this morning with the concept of trying to put some Jersey barriers right around where the back of those cars are and utilizing those spots in there for like the 4 hours a day that we have decent sun over there if it's sunny. As far as having something on Minor Street, if it's on the other side of the street, I don't know how well that'd work, but we'll do whatever it takes. That's for
Okay.
sure.
All right. Let's see. Real quick, Danny, do you want to kind of talk about parking and kind of what you think that this is going to look like over the next several weeks?
So, okay, fine.
Danny? Okay, I guess Danny has. Well, I think we're coming up with very creative, adaptable, and a hybrid situation. And I think that's great. That's what I love about this group. It's so much outside thinking and stuff. We've got Diane on us, and there was a couple of questions, encroachment agreements, and the alcohol license area extension. Let's see, who was asked? Greg, were you asking about having to redo the application and do a variance on that? What was your question?
It was basically, are those still in force, or would we have to go through the process all over again?
Diane?
Will they be enforced with what you submitted back previously? I mean, if you're going to change your area or extend it, you'd have to reapply.
Okay, but if you're using the same space, say the 60 feet that's in front of ours minus the bump out, then that we wouldn't have to refile. We'd be in good shape. That's what you're saying. Okay.
And that's good with the
That's
state.
good news.
They, see it going away as well.
Diane, what's the turnaround on that encroachment? Because if I'm talking with the mayor about getting those parking spaces behind westbound, I mean, ideally, if I can capture sales on this Wednesday before Thanksgiving, which is going to be such a huge day. I mean, the last time I emailed them on the weekend, they responded on the weekend. So
I cannot say how long it would take the state. They're usually pretty quick about it, especially on something like this, but I can't give you a time.
I'm going to be emailing you those forms later today.
John, why don't you bring that map back up so we can show Diane what Marcel's talking about that he's gonna try to attempt. So Diane, you see that row of vehicles behind Marcel's place?
Yes.
Right there. That's what he's gonna ask for, to be able to set up some temporary structures on that. So he'll be coming back with a variance to be able to use those. And it sounded like all the downtown business owners and people on this call are okay with not having the parking places. So I'm fine with that. If downtown's okay with it, let's give it to them if that's what they want to do.
One thing I just want to make sure we think about, there is a significant number of our handicap parking spaces in that row. This is like a lot of our downtown handicap parking. I'm not saying that we shouldn't use that. I just wonder if we should think about.
Can we move 2 of them? Can we move 2 of those handicap spaces to Minor Street, or is that just ridiculous with the amount of spaces we're taking?
Well, you got to remember, Minor Street, it's open handicap parking.
Oh, okay.
And now I don't think we have signs that say handicap parking allowed anywhere. But with our parking program, anybody that parks on Minor Street with a parking placard or license is exempt.
I just want to take 2 of those.
2 of them?
Yeah.
Mayor, this is Dan Wester. Can you hear me?
Yay. Hey, Dan. How are you? Thanks for joining us on a spare of the moment. We've got some concerns and some questions really about.
I want to chime in. I want to chime in on this handicap thing real quick, and then we can go over your questions. But whatever handicap spots you remove, you've got to account for. And that's, Jonathan had a great statement. So if we take 2, we got to find 2. Just keep that in mind.
Question, does the handicap parking need to be a percentage of spaces? In other words, we're reducing overall parking. So does that mean that we have to keep the same number of handicap spaces?
Well, yeah, that's a slippery slope. It's going to go, so your parking spaces were based on your occupant load. So if we're cutting down our occupant load, I would say we could go directly proportional to that as well. To answer your question is yes, that if you're reducing your parking spaces, you're reducing your occupant load, so goes your ratio to handicap.
So I think we'll be fine on that, because we right now CDOT taking 80 parking places of ours right now. So.
All right. I'll let you guys continue your conversations there, but if you guys want to call me back in.
Yep. No. So here's what we need your direction on, Dan, is if we bring in, or when we bring in these single structures for single family dining, what is considered a permanent, and what are going to be the specs on these things? And is it going to require our building department to come out and do an inspection and look at them and make sure that they're sound?
Well, no more different than what we've been doing. We'll do a cursory. They're going to have to meet some sort of wind load. And then I know Kelly's on this call. He's going to want to talk about what the material is and conflagration of that stuff. But we're going to do wind loads. If we can get there, I'd like to see snow, but we're probably not going to get snow loads, depending on what the proprietors pick for their shade structures or their shelters. So we're concerned about wind. And then we're not going to sell a separate permit for them or require separate permits. But when they get them up, we can do a cursory walk.
Dan, can I chime? I have a question. This is Marcel from Westbound and Down. I'm trying to copy what's going on down in Denver with greenhouses. And I'm looking at how to, I've got some creative ways to anchor these down so they don't go anywhere. As long as these are properly anchored, I'm hoping that these things can pass muster.
Okay.
All right.
Those hoop houses, yeah, as long as we can get some, anchored down for wind, I think we can live with that. We're going to have to live with it. They don't ever meet the risk category for assembly or restaurant, but, you know, we're just going to have to look past that. I just don't want them to end up as kites and hurting people.
Gotcha.
Marcel, do you have a picture of one of these?
I do, but Dan, I don't think you're not on your screen. Are you on the phone?
We ended up with 3 of our 4 guys out with got exposed, so I'm not doing inspections. I'm in my truck.
All right. Well, hey, just to let you know, it is a. I mean, I can share my screen real quick for everybody else to see.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, I want to.
You can you can email it to me, Marcel.
Okay, that sounds good. Let's see here. Am I sharing?
And while you're sharing that, Marcel, and for the group, it's good. I mean, we had this big meeting about, I don't know, 6 weeks ago, and there were hundreds of people on this meeting from all over the state, and there was a lot of creative ideas. And I think one of the consensus was that as long as we could get to some wind, we're never going to get to the snow loads, I don't think. But if we could get to wind and our exiting wasn't blocked and we're not creating a fire trap, I think we can just keep moving with this stuff. And if Denver's already starting to cut their teeth on this and we can use some of those as pioneers, I'm all good with it.
Hey, Dan, this is Randy Watson. One of the questions I've got on these structures is, do they need to be open on 2 sides or not? If you've been involved in a lot of discussions in communities, that topic may have come up.
Well, that's what's the health department saying? Because I think a lot of them have kind of relaxed it. They're going to 3 sides, and just because, you know, we're heading into the winter months. What's your health department say? That's going to be driven by what they're going to consider inside as outside.
Okay, because that to me that's an important question to be answered as we look at our possible solutions.
Colorado Health Department.
I'm good with
the structures.
What was that, Marcel?
Troy from the Colorado Health Department has approved those structures.
Oh, with all 4 sides enclosed?
I don't know about 4 sides, but 3, like the door open on one side is the work.
That's what I understand too.
Okay.
I understand the same.
I'm trying to get some clarification from Dr. Ryan on that, so that we're well aware of what this means. You know, what does indoor dining mean? If it's just, is that considered indoor dining? If it's one family in a single structure, enclosed all the way. So I've got Alyssa working on that for me, and she'll get back with me shortly.
Yeah, before we go out and start buying stuff, that's an important question to be answered.
Yeah. So
I'm pretty sure that most of the health departments have got their head wrapped around at least 3 sides, and I don't know about single family dining on 4.
Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah. I think I mentioned before, if it was a 20 by 20 tent, and you were trying to social, and you had it enclosed, yes, I would consider that indoor dining. I'm just not sure how the public health director is going to look at a single structure, 1 family in with a table that can fit up to 10, really, and whether it needs to be having 2 sides open to be considered outdoor. So we'll wait on that. Oh, okay. Brandy, thank you. She says in Grand Junction, everybody can see greenhouses like those on their page. They're calling them outdoor dining, so we can check with them. So thanks for that, Brandy. So I think that we've got, we've kind of got an idea of what businesses want to use the space in front of their building as outdoor usage. I'm not sure that any retail is going to want to do this. You know, I'd be surprised, but it could happen. So what I would suggest is done. Hang on, let me answer this because it's Alyssa. Probably going to give some feedback. Yes. Ah, okay. All right. Thank you. Okay, sounds good. Thank you. All right, Dr. Ryan's going to jump back on it with us in about 10 minutes, and he has an update from the state. So that'll be interesting for us to stick around and listen to that. Let's see when the call came in. Oh, we've got a good idea of where we want to do on the southern facing businesses. What I'm going to ask is John Kane to, like you did before, go knock door to door, go down the line, tell them what we're doing on that side of the street, and see who wants buy-in and who wants to keep the open parking in front. In the meantime, I'm gonna reach out to CDOT. They owe us. They've delayed us. They've taken our parking, and I really don't think there's going to be any problem. Like somebody put in the chat, they've got so many. I believe it was Carla Cole. So I don't remember Pandemian, or I don't remember what word she is, but there's a lot of those back there. I don't see any reason
a plethora.
that they won't work with us to try to get some of those things and help us out. Could be
So
wrong.
just on,
but,
we're talking just the
Tom
north
Bordoni,
side.
do we have any stash somewhere that we could use?
We don't have very many. We only have about 4 or 5.
Can't hear you.
We don't have very many at all.
Nope, still can't hear you. You're not on mute.
How
Now
about
try it. Yeah, we can't hear you.
Mike, I'm
You
hearing.
need to hang up and
I
call.
can hear you.
us back.
I'll hear him.
Mike, I'm hearing him just fine.
I can't hear anybody because I had it muted. Go ahead, John.
We only have about 4 of them with
Oh.
the city is all.
Okay. All right. So we will need some help. And then, like I was saying, we'll get, and then we'll kind of go out, see where this 14-foot, where this 14-foot, 15-foot drive lane, how that's going to work, and kind of determine how far out we'll allow in those 2 parking places. But it needs to be consistent. We're going to allow them to go from the curb 10 feet out. Then everybody, Mountain Prime, Azteca, I know they're going to probably want to. Well, that'd be a question because I don't know if they want to invest in the $500 units to try to make this happen.
Mike, you guys might have already discussed this. I had to come up to Breckenridge for an emergency. Did you find out any more about the 5-star rating system that your daughter said was in Mesa County?
Well, I don't know any more about it. Dr. Ryan took a position on that. He was not thrilled that, and he doesn't think it's going to work. And I believe, reading between the lines, he felt that was probably going to go away before it was all over with. That the state was going to come in and mandate them to take that away.
There was just an article published that Mesa County just ran out of ICU beds today.
Wow. So they may be the first county to go purple. So and that's and the history of that is when we all started with this, Mesa County had the lowest count, and then now all of a sudden I think they're the highest count in the county. In the state now. So I can see that probably going away, unfortunately.
Hey, Mike, I got a question. This is something that you guys have discussed in the past, and the main thing that I thought you said was about sidewalk tables would be as long as there's a 4-foot space, you could do tables out there.
That is correct. We need.
Is it going to require anything different?
You have to have an encroachment agreement.
Okay.
If you're going to have those tables out, and that's for anybody on Minor Street, if you can comply and provide that 4-foot clearance for handicap, anything from that 4 foot to your building can be used with an encroachment agreement. Whether you want to put benches out there, tables out there, whatever. We just need to make sure we get that encroachment agreement.
As long as you got the 4 feet and you're good to go. Okay, excellent.
All right. We got Dan Ebert on from the Evergreen National Bank. Do you have anything to talk to us about today, Dan? And thanks for joining us. Dan? I saw your mute come off, but we can't hear you. All right, hopefully we'll get Dan in here in a minute. So what other things do we need to talk about as we're waiting on Dr. Ryan to get back on?
Real quick, Kelly, if we have battery operated heaters out there, like if I get big lithium batteries and plug those into small electric heaters, is that, if it's all enclosed and off the ground, is that a viable solution?
I'm not familiar with those, but it sounds like it might be a solution.
Yeah.
You know, I looked, so they make tent heaters, you know, that you put in tents when you go camping. And they're, you know, they're propane, and
I'm not doing propane.
You're not gonna die.
Propane.
With these in your tent.
Not doing it.
Okay.
No propane.
Okay.
Nope. I'm gonna do the largest lithium battery you've ever seen. What could possibly go wrong there?
So what are you gonna do? You're gonna pull chips out electric car up and put jumper cables on it and try to?
No. I'm just gonna have a little battery, and then people can plug their phones in, and they can listen to their Bluetooth speakers. It's gonna be great.
I like it. I like it. Kristen Wallace, I see your name. Can you tell us who you are? Or does anybody know Kristen? Okay. All right. From the chamber, Brandy, you have anything that you'd like to talk to us about? Things that the chamber might be doing for our community as we're moving into this next red level, moving down to red?
We are going to be ticking back up on the out takeover and Creative Commons resources. So we'll be trying to gather the whatever information all the restaurants and businesses want to be available on that webpage. For any deals people are doing curbside, if they have an online sales portal, we want to be able to link to that. Really anything that they want to get out to the community, we want to share that. That's open to all businesses, not just chamber members. And we've got Small Business Saturday at the end of the month. And so we've kind of just been trying to keep our finger on that pulse to see how we can promote shopping small this holiday season and just staying within the public health guidelines and keeping everybody safe. And that's pretty much what we're focusing on right now.
All right. Thank you, Brandy, very much for that.
Sure. Thank you.
I think I can't imagine we exhausted all of our conversation with this group. Steve? Oh, Randy. Yeah, Randy. I can call him Randy. He'll get a conversation going.
Yeah, Mike, about that burrito I had at your place no. But
yeah, you know what he said? I should boost the price of that thing up about $3. That's what he called me and told me.
But no, seriously, and you know, in terms of the conversation that we're having, to me, that big thing is what's the structure need to look like? And if we can actually reasonably accommodate people outdoors off that north side of the street, I think that's good. And I think that, you know, for those facing the mall side, you know, whatever options, they've got possibly more options there. But I can't, you know, I'm anxious to hear what Dr. Ryan has to say on this. But clearly we need to if we can get more outdoor seating, outdoor dining, we need to do it because the restaurants just won't be able to survive.
I agree. Andy?
So do we have a consensus that we want to make Minor Street one way and use Jersey barriers to block off parking spots on the north side for those businesses and properties that would like to have that?
I vote yes.
Andy, I think we've seen the conversation, at least from my standpoint, seems to be moving that way. The one point that was brought up, and I think that both you and Chief kind of looked at it from different angles in terms of the one-way traffic, it probably does make more sense for the one-way traffic to go from west to east, only because 103 is really going to be the primary off-ramp for people coming to town.
And I'm fine with that. I think we can get those Jersey barriers placed fairly quickly once we have determined where we want them on the north side. And I think we could also sign Minor Street one way going eastbound and just keep the parallel spots on the south side. That can be, those actions I think can be done fairly quickly, maybe even before Thanksgiving. I think we can find a way to get those Jersey barriers and get them placed and do the re-signing. Don, do you agree with that? I don't want to overcommit here, but I think we can probably make that happen, particularly if CDOT will cooperate.
Yeah, I guess the other question for the chief is, when we put the barriers there, we're going to have a blunt end in the street. Is that going to make a difference?
If there's any way we can angle that last one so it meets the bump out, the farthest edge of the bump out, that would be preferable, because if something hits it, it will potentially deflect it toward the center of the street. So my recommendation is, where we can have them straight, we have them straight. When we're at the end of the bump out or approach it, we angle it so it deflects anything that might hit it. One of the things we might want to keep in mind too is we're going to need to keep gaps for people to get in and out, whether it's at the bump out, which makes the most sense, or strictly the intersections.
And I was just thinking those Jersey barriers would be just between the bump outs.
Okay.
So you would, in this case, it's good that we have those bump outs because we have them mid-block, so you could have pedestrian access, although we don't encourage people going crossing the middle of the block.
Would it make sense to actually take some measurements, Andy? I kind of liked your idea of maybe changing the south side to diagonal parking. Again, maybe that doesn't work, but would it make sense to actually measure it out and see if it would make sense? Because that might make it so we lose a little less parking.
Yes, I think I can have our city engineer take a look at that. He actually just took a look at some restriping possibilities for us on other streets. So perhaps he can take a quick look at this from an engineer standpoint, traffic engineer standpoint.
And what I would like to do after this meeting, if we have, Steve's, who do we have really? Randy, you're not here either, are you? To maybe go out there and walk that. We can do that tomorrow. Go out. When you get out of quarantine,
Yeah, I'm here.
Steve? Can't hear you.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow? Well, let's plan on meeting out there tomorrow and taking a walk and walking the site and writing it out. So we have a plan.
What time? You want to set a time?
Let me look at my schedule in a minute and see what's good for everybody. So Dr. Ryan's back on with us. I believe that I heard that he met with the state after he met with us. And let's hear about that first, Dr. Ryan, and then we're gonna ask you about the definition of outdoor or indoor seating with these bubbles or these tents or these greenhouses.
Okay, no, I didn't meet with the state. I was meeting with the high school.
Oh,
But anyway, so my understanding, and I know the state is really working on a better guidance for this, but it's my understanding that once you build something that's more permanent with 3 walls and a roof, it's no longer outdoors. A tent with flimsy walls that aren't permanent, where the airflow is significant, that's considered still an outdoor structure. But once you put 3 walls and a roof on it, and the airflow is minimal compared to what would normally be outside, I think that's now considered an indoor structure.
even if it's only going to be 1 table inside the structure and 1 family. Marcel, bring up the picture again. Show Dr. Ryan what you're looking at.
Yeah, you got it. Dr. Ryan, we've seen these all over Denver to be used as outdoor structures.
I haven't left the home in 3 weeks, Marcel, so.
Not a problem. Let's see here. Hang on here. Doing my, let me get my tab for Home Depot. There it is. Can you see that? So
Yeah.
the door would be open and there's a panel that opens on top. I'm putting these up on pallets so that there's airflow underneath. It's going to be pretty well ventilated.
Okay. And you're planning to put a single table in there?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, very creative. I applaud any sort of level creativity is is very much a good thing. So, I mean, the fact, yes, there's nuances to it, and obviously you guys have figured that out. That it is a structure. Yes, it is technically indoor seating. But the fact that you have only one family or one table in there changes that relevance immediately.
Yeah, and it'll be cleaned better than anything ever's been cleaned in the history of Colorado.
Yeah, and the fact that it has an air vent on the top and whatever is.
I
is
can
also,
easily make 2 air vents and just, punch the old hole out of the top too.
Well, when it starts snowing, though, you'll appreciate the fact that you didn't.
It's part of the experience.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
true.
that-
Marcel,
I think
did
Go ahead,
you
Greg.
say that those were already approved?
What's that?
Did you say that those greenhouses are already approved?
They're being used in Denver.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't, given the way that you've laid that out, Marcel, I don't see an issue with it. The only issue I'd see is when you start to mix people from different households in one, that would then begin to have a problem with it. But if you're keeping it a single group, then I don't really see a problem with that at all.
Hey, Dr. Ryan, one of the things Marcel said he was going to be doing was putting them on a pallet so there's a little bit of airflow coming underneath. Is that necessary?
I don't know that it's necessary, given that you have the vent at the top. It would be certainly would be helpful, definitely.
I think I'm going to need the pallet to anchor them down. I'm going to have full kegs of water on the pallet, and then the tent's going to be anchored to the pallet
Yeah, that's a good
to
plan.
keep it from blowing to Kansas.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's great that we identify. What was the size of that greenhouse, Marcel?
6.5 feet by 8 feet. 6.25 by 8 feet, excuse me.
Okay.
And the beauty of those sorts of things, Andrew, I see you have your hand up. This is my last thing I would say. The beauty of those sorts of things is they can easily be converted once the shitstorm has resided or subsided. We can use them as a community garden and greenhouses around the county and put them to better use than keeping people inside. And
Yeah, Uchi and George will get these for scraps of soil.
I see Brandy smiling and shaking her head because she's part of Scraps of Soil's board. So
Yeah.
Oh, it was a great thought. Okay, Andy?
Dr. Ryan, we had our building official on. I don't think he's on right at the moment. So he's been chiming in from the building code standpoint. And we also have Kelly Babian, our fire chief, on the line too, and he's been weighing in. Would it be possible, Marcel, to get those specs for that structure to Kelly and to Dan to review? And I'd like to see if they can review them and if they can, approve them as a structure from snow load, wind, or what they would require to make those work. And then they can do their field inspections once you get them put up. So I think that would be the quickest way to make this happen.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I would like for you to take the lead on that and bring all the information back to us, Marcel, if you don't mind.
Andrew, I'm copying you right now with the specs. We're just the website that leads to the specs. Is that good enough?
That'd be fine. And I can get them to Kelly and Dan and
cool.
Or to the whole group for that
Andy,
matter.
What's the
I'm still on.
Dan, I'm sorry, Dan's still on. Dan, I just wanted to let you know, since this is a rare opportunity that we have our health officer, our fire chief, and building official all on the same call at this critical time. It's a good time to be communicating back and forth if we have any other questions that cross over from public health to building to fire.
Kelly?
you're on mute, Kelly.
To clarify, those greenhouse structures would go in the parking spaces adjacent to the mall
Yes,
rather than in the mall?
yes.
Okay, that's good.
Hey, Mike, would they not be possibly going in on Minor Street?
And Minor Street. So like if Azteca wants to set up a couple of them, They could put one on that south curb, on that south, what is north curb line, south curb line. Yes, north curb line. Got my north and south mixed up. North curb line. Kelly?
Minor Street is more acceptable for that in those parking spaces because we have that 8-foot sidewalk to work with. Putting those in the mall, the problem was that the back wall of the businesses pretty much abuts that mall space. So we need to have that access back there. If they're up in front, we still have pretty good access to get around them.
But you're okay with them being in the parking spaces?
Yes, for sure.
Keep them all clear. Okay, okay, that's good. That's good to know. Let's see. Any other questions or thoughts from for Dr. Ryan?
Hey, Dan, did you hear Dr. Ryan's comments about what's an indoor space or what's considered indoor dining, what's outdoor dining?
I did.
Okay, good. Okay, I know it was a question earlier. Okay.
I had to jump on a call. Did I miss, what was the announce or update from the state?
It wasn't one. I thought Alyssa said that he had been meeting with the state and he had some information for us, but that wasn't the case.
No, I was meeting with the high school. Yeah, and I would, great point, Andrew. I would defer to Kelly and others. I'm not an engineer. And snow load is obviously really relevant to those sorts of structures and that thing. So all very relevant, and I would defer to them from a safety, that sort of safety perspective going forward.
Okay, I think we have a good plan in place. Would everybody like to meet again tomorrow and follow up kind of some things that I'm gonna dig into and see, and then set up a meeting tomorrow to meet out on site so we can start just walk those blocks and kind of lay out what we're expecting to do. So because we're gonna have to come up with the ask of how many barriers I need to call CDOT about and things like that.
Hey, Mike, you said north and south a few different times. Which side of the street are we talking about?
The southern, how about this? This is easy for me to remember. The southern facing curb line will be allowed to set structures up on it. The northern facing, since it's, there's not any sun and it freezes up and it's not going to be desirable, we're going to leave that open for parking.
Gotcha.
Thanks, Linda.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else from anybody? What time would y'all like to meet out there tomorrow? Tomorrow is Friday. Let's see.
8 o'clock.
Is that John Bordoni talking?
You bet.
Hey, John, I was going to say 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock works for me too.
10 o'clock, Steve?
I'm not sure when my plane gets in.
Marcel, can you be up here?
Yeah, I can be up here around 8 o'clock.
Okay, well, let's see, Greg?
Hang on, I thought we were talking 10 o'clock. Is it 8 or 10?
10 o'clock, 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock.
I'm sorry, Mike, did you ask me a question?
Yeah, can you be with us up here at 10 o'clock in the morning to walk downtown?
Unfortunately, I'll be in Breckenridge tomorrow the whole day.
No problem.
Yeah,
No problem.
and 10 o'clock's not going to work for me. I'm going to need to do it at 9. I need to be in here at 10:30 because I'm continuing to furlough people.
9's good with me.
9
Linda, are you going to come out and join us, Linda? No? Okay. All right.
No, I've got a meeting at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Okay, let's plan on 9 o'clock. Okay, thank you. Let's plan on meeting out at Tommy Knockers at 9 o'clock in the morning for anybody that can make it. And we'll walk it, we'll get a plan, we'll do some measurements. We'll identify how many barriers that we're gonna need so we can contact, I don't know, maybe we can get those things set by, well, we really don't. It's probably gonna be Monday before we can get the things set.
Monday works as long as we can get something up by Wednesday to capture that pre-Thanksgiving traffic. Man, that would be a godsend.
Okay.
Hey, Andy, what does it look like then if we keep moving down this direction? What does it look like for striping on the street?
Well, I think that's why I want to make sure we're all have consensus here on what we're doing. I know I had brought up some ideas earlier and we've had some discussion. I think where we are right now, and let's make sure we all agree, or most of us agree, is we would block off the north side parking spaces for those businesses and property owners that want it. And then we would have one-way traffic going eastbound on Minor and continue with the parallel spaces on the south side. So really it'd be minimal changes other than making Minor one way and blocking off certain parking spaces on the north side. Is that what we're all?
Were you going to look at the possibility of doing a diagonal on the north side?
If that's desired, that's something I could certainly talk with our city engineer about to see if he could do a quick analysis of that and see if that is a possible option as well.
Yeah, Andy, if we can do that, we probably break even with the loss of the parking places on the north side of the street.
Right.
So maybe
if there's
we should,
room to go angled, that would be great.
yeah, it's going to take measurements and, making sure. And then we need to decide, if we do diagonal parking, it's probably going to be an additional 3 foot out into the street. So you got a parking space that is 8 foot wide. I think you're going to be 11 foot off the curb line with parallel parking, with diagonal parking. And so that kind of cuts down the other side. Then we really need to look at, would we prefer to give a little bit more room on that southern facing curb so they could come out and move out and activate a little bit more of the street, because we still have a good drive lane through there. Does that make sense to everybody?
Take the measurements, figure it out. It's all,
Yep.
it's all up to the tape measure.
Linda?
Yes, are you still thinking about having parking spots on the north side wherever there's not a dining pod?
Yes,
Gotcha.
absolutely.
Sounds
Yeah.
good.
So one other
Okay.
thing I want to clarify, I know that Marcel's talking about using some parking spaces in the parking lot. I wasn't thinking that that would require Jersey barriers. I was thinking those could just put, once he gets the approval, the structures could be put there in those.
No
parking
Jersey
lots.
barriers needed for my spot?
Well, that's what I'm asking.
Because they're tucked in behind those two concrete
I
barriers.
would say that would be up to you, Marcel.
Okay.
Maybe it's a good idea. Okay.
I've got
It may
insurance.
be a good idea to go ahead and do that.
Okay.
If we can get them, I'll take them all
Okay.
along there. If we can get them,
That
I'd
extra safety is a good thing. So if
Also,
we're
then
out
nobody
setting
tries
them-
to park there.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank
Well, I
you.
think this was an excellent conversation. I know we went pretty long on this, but I think we really ironed out some good things and some good ideas. And we're going to keep moving forward on this and prepare for trying to do the best we can to bring in as much business as we can through this critical times. Andy?
So we're meeting at 9 o'clock tomorrow. Is that right?
Yes.
And where would we like to meet?
Tommy Knocker said he's going to have breakfast for us.
Okay.
So,
Start at the top of the hill.
No more meetings in person.
Hey, I will throw in that for the 9 o'clock meeting, if it's chilly, that the coffee's on us. If you guys want to stop by the coffee shop and get coffee and take it to the meeting, it's courtesy of the shop.
Well,
I think our weather is not going to be too bad, but we'll take you up on it. High tomorrow is 40 degrees, so it might be a little chilly in the morning. They're saying, it's only 35. If we can't handle it standing out there, how are people going to dine out there? Come on. All right. Thanks, everybody. Dan, thanks for jumping on with us. I think Dr. Ryan's gone. So, yeah. Great work, everybody. And we will
Thank you
talk
so
to
much.
you tomorrow. And then we'll follow up on our regular meeting on Monday. All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Ahoy ho, as we said.
Aloha.
Aloha.